Verses 1-6. Joshua and the hosts of Israel had now been a good while in the land of Canaan, and no great matters were effected. They were made masters of Jericho by a miracle, of Ai by stratagem, and of Gibeon by surrender, and that was all. Hitherto the progress of their victories had not seemed proportionable to the magnificence of their entry and the glory of their beginnings. Those among them that were impatient of delays, it is probable, complained of Joshua's slowness, and asked why they did not immediately penetrate into the heart of the country, before the enemy could rally their forces to make head against them, why they stood trifling, while they were so confident both of their title and of their success. Thus Joshua's prudence, perhaps, was censured as slothfulness, cowardice, and want of spirit. Canaan was not to be conquered in a day. God had said that by little and little he would drive out the Canaanites, Ex 23:30. He that believeth will not make haste, or conclude that the promise will never be performed because it is not performed so soon as he expected. Joshua waited for the Canaanites to be the aggressors. Let them first make an onset upon Israel, or the allies of Israel, and then their destruction will be, or at least will appear to be, the more just and more justifiable. Joshua had warrant sufficient to set upon them, yet he stays till they strike the first stroke, that he might provide for honest things in the sight, not only of God, but of men, and they would be the more inexcusable in their resistance, now that they had seen what favor the Gibeonites found with Israel. It was for the advantage of Israel to sit still a while, that the forces of these little kings might unite in one body, and so might the more easily be cut off at one blow. This God had in his eye when he put it into their hearts to combine against Israel, though they designed thereby to strengthen one another. That which he intended was to gather them as sheaves into the floor, to fall together under the flail. Thus oftentimes that seeming paradox proves wholesome counsel, stay a while, and we shall have done the sooner. After Israel had waited a while for an occasion to make war upon the Canaanites, a fair one offers itself. 5 kings combine against the Gibeonites. Adoni-Zedek king of Jerusalem was the first mover and ringleader of this confederacy. He had a good name. It signifies Lord of Righteousness, being a descendant perhaps from Melchizedek, King of Righteousness, but, notwithstanding the goodness of his name and family, it seems he was a bad man, and an implacable enemy to the posterity of that Abraham to whom his predecessor, Melchizedek, was such a faithful friend. He called upon his neighbors to join against Israel either because he was the most honorable prince, and had the precedency among these kings. Perhaps they had some dependence upon him, at least they paid a deference to him, as the most public, powerful, and active man they had among them, or because he was first or most apprehensive of the danger his country was in, not only by the conquest of Jericho and Ai, but the surrender of Gibeon, which, it seems, was the chief thing that alarmed him. It being one of the most considerable frontier towns they had. Against Gibeon therefore all the force he would raise must be leveled. Come, says he, and help me, that we may smite Gibeon. This he resolves to do, either in policy, that he might retake the city, because it was a strong city, and of great consequence to this country in whose hands it was. In passion, that he might chastise the citizens for making peace with Joshua, pretending that they had perfidiously betrayed their country and strengthened the common enemy, whereas they had really done the greatest kindness imaginable to their country, by setting them a good example, if they would have followed it. Thus Satan and his instruments make war upon those that make peace with God. Marvel not if the world hate you, and treat those as deserters who are converts to Christ. The Gibeonites send notice to Joshua of the distress and danger they are in, v6. Now they expect benefit from the league they had made with Israel, because, though it was obtained by deceit, it was afterwards confirmed when the truth came out. They think Joshua obliged to help them. In conscience, because they were his servants, not in compliment, as they had said in their first address, ch 9:8, we are thy servants, but in reality made servants to the congregation, and it is the duty of masters to take care of the poorest and meanest of their servants, and not to see them wronged when it is in the power of their hand to right them. Those that pay allegiance may reasonably expect protection. Thus David pleads with God, PS 119:94, I am thine, save me, and so may we, if indeed we be his. In honor, because the ground of their enemies' quarrel with them was the respect they had shown to Israel, and the confidence they had in a covenant with them. Joshua cannot refuse to help them when it is for their affection to him, and to the name of his God, that they are attacked. David thinks it a good plea with God, PS 69:7, for thy sake I have borne reproach. When our spiritual enemies set themselves in array against us, and threaten to swallow us up, let us, by faith and prayer, apply to Christ our Joshua for strength and succor, as Paul did, and we shall receive the same answer of peace, my grace is sufficient for thee.